this is Erin with The Joy in Pens and Paper, and I'm going to talk through our Greece and Turkey trip, days 5 and 6. And so we are on Tuesday, June 25th, and Wednesday, June 26th. Right now I am organizing and cutting out the pictures that I pre-printed on my Kodak Steps printer and getting those placed on the page in a way that looks good to me, makes sense for the day, and provides the writing space that I'm going to use. So you can see me kind of moving around the pictures to see what formation I like the most. And then once I find the formation that seems the most pleasing, then I take the sticky back off and place the pictures down. So Tuesday, June 25th was Embarkation Day for our cruise. Our time slot to embark was 1:00 p.m., but our travel agent let us know that we could get there earlier than that. And our checkout time at the hotel was 12 o'clock. So the timing actually worked out really perfect because it was about a 20-minute taxi ride from the hotel to Piraeus, which was the port that we were cruising out of. So we had a leisurely morning. We slept in as much as we wanted, and we got breakfast at the hotel breakfast. I've talked a little bit about the hotel breakfast. I will stress again, it was phenomenal. This breakfast was more than a continental breakfast, in my opinion. It had everything from pancakes and toast or breads of different kinds to fresh fruits, a yogurt bar where you could have yogurt and some toppings. It had some dry cereals, but then it also had the hot breakfast things like eggs. They didn't necessarily have bacon. They had more the ham, but sausage links, and then it also had a whole bar where you could build a Greek salad. And that Greek salad bar had feta, and then it also had some deli meats like salami and things like that. But it was a very comprehensive continental breakfast, and all three of us had things that we really loved about that breakfast. For me, and again, I've mentioned this before, it was the Greek yogurt and honey that was the big hit. They had a different version of Nutella, and adding that Nutella with some pears, which was one of the fresh fruits that they had as an option for putting in your Greek yogurt, was really, really delicious. So I was a big fan of the hotel breakfast. So we started our day with that, and then we all showered. We finalized the little bit of packing that we had left before heading out the door and going down to the lobby to get a taxi called. The taxi ride over to Piraeus was easy peasy. Really wasn't any traffic. We got there probably about 12:15, 12:20-ish, and the organization that Norwegian Cruise Lines had for embarking was pretty good. Our travel agent had pre-printed out our luggage tags for the bags that we were going to drop off to be brought to our stateroom. So I had those all labeled and ready to go. It just took us a little bit to figure out that we could drop those things off. We didn't need to hand our bags to a worker. There was an area that we could just drop our luggage and then we could get into a line. So we ended up being in kind of a line that we didn't really need to be in. And that's fine. I mean, we wasted about 5 to 7 minutes of our own time. But when we figured it out, we dropped our luggage, we got in line. Norwegian Cruise Lines brought out cups of ice cold water to people, which was really great because it was very hot. And we stood in line to do our check-in and have our passports checked. And then we went to this other kind of holding room where they brought people onto the boat in groups. So they had a really nice workflow in place to keep things from getting too clogged, which was really nice. There was this one employee that we called this employee the woo girl. She would come out and hold up a number for the group of people that were going to step onto the boat next, and everyone would shout and woo and exclaim when their number was called. So we just joked that she had probably the best job on that day. We got onto the boat and needed to report to our muster station right away. So we went to the 7th floor in the aft, so on the back of the boat, and reported to our muster, got our key card scanned in, and then our stateroom was not ready, so we went to the buffet and had lunch. It was our first time in the buffet, and we got separated, which was a little scary because we didn't have phones to be able to text or communicate with each other, but my son and I were together, and we just needed to hunker down and wait for my husband. He eventually found us. And we had our first cocktail and then decided to explore the boat. We walked around to a couple different locations and took some pictures, and we ended up on I think it was back on the 7th floor at the Sunset Bar. We grabbed another cocktail, and while we were sitting there enjoying that, they announced that our stateroom was ready. So we went to our stateroom. 2 of our 3 bags were there. The 3rd was just down the hall. We met Alvin, our housekeeping supervisor, who made a point to learn our names and repeat them, which was really thoughtful. And then we took some pictures, got some ice cream. My son started his journey of perfecting his ice cream swirl from the machine in the buffet, and that night we grabbed dinner at one of the complimentary sit-down restaurants called Taste, and had kind of an earlier evening. We did watch the Euros game in our stateroom before going to bed. Waking up the next morning, we were already at our first port, and our first port of the trip was Thessaloniki. We were supposed to go to Volos on this trip initially when we booked it, but a few weeks back we got an update that our itinerary had changed. Volos had been dropped from the itinerary and Thessaloniki had been picked up. So given that was kind of a last minute change, we had just a short period of time to figure out what we were going to do in Thessaloniki, and it was okay because we didn't necessarily have any big goals of what we wanted to do or see in Volos, so it's not like we were devastated, we were just surprised. So we did not schedule an excursion for Thessaloniki. We were kind of on our own, and my husband had a travel guidebook, so he had planned out a few things. So getting off the boat in Thessaloniki, they provided a shuttle to go down to the end of the pier. It was about a 10 to 15 minute walk from where our boat was docked to the pier where you were entering into the city. So they gave a shuttle to cut that down to just a few minutes, which was really thoughtful. And the first thing I wanted to do was find a coffee shop, and I found this little coffee shop called Yellow, and I grabbed an Ibrik double, and an Ibrik is a Greek coffee. It was good. I am not necessarily a fan of Greek coffee, so one of the things that I will say is it was towards the end of the cup, it was very grainy. That was not my favorite, but I'm happy that I tried it. I also will point out that this is where in our trip we really started to notice this trend of house pets being everywhere. So cats and dogs just being everywhere. There were a couple of dogs that were just laying outside of the coffee shop. They didn't have collars on. They didn't appear to be attached to any owner, as there were no other patrons sitting out there. And I will say my son really thoroughly enjoyed that. He sat himself down and pet some of the dogs, which was really nice. Then we walked down the street and went to the White Tower. And the White Tower is no longer white, but the reason it has that name is back in the day it was used as a prison, and one of the prisoners negotiated being let out early in exchange for painting the entire tower white. And so the guards basically were like, yep, okay, deal, we'll do that. And so at one point it was a white tower. It is now probably through rain and other things, all the white has come off, just a regular stone tower. But we saw the White Tower, we saw the Arch of Galerius and Rotunda, we walked around Old Town, saw the Hagia Sophia, saw the had lunch at Balkanaki. So after we did a bunch of walking around, etc., we knew we wanted to grab lunch before heading back onto the boat. And along the waterline, the coastline, was just restaurant after restaurant after restaurant. And our focus was we wanted to go to a Greek restaurant. So we found this one that the menu was a very traditional Greek food. And so we ordered a feta dish and some sardines for my husband and I. And I am happy to say I ate the sardines. Would I order them again? Probably not, but when in Greece, do as a Greek do, right? So we had our sardines, and at this point in the trip, my eye was really bothering me. I later found out that my contact had a very slight tear/ripple along the edge of it, but as we walked around Thessaloniki, my eye was watering, it was on fire. I first thought maybe I got sunscreen in my eye, but I was sitting at the restaurant just dabbing my eye with a napkin because it was just oozing and it was so uncomfortable, and I needed to keep my sunglasses on even in the shade because it was very sensitive to light. And so I was ready to get back on the boat so that I could fix my eye and take my contact out, but I was also trying to be present in the moment, which was a little bit of a challenge. While we were sitting and eating lunch, there also were a couple of street vendors that came up to our table. One was this gentleman who was just tapping on a small drum, and I from across the table said no thank you. My husband kind of smiled, nodded, and said thank you, and so the guy kept playing, and it was a couple of awkward minutes before he finally walked away. And then this woman approached our table and gave my husband a book and gave my son a necklace and said it was for the baby boy, and I said no thank you, and my husband smiled and said thank you, and so she kept kind of pushing the book towards him and saying it's for the baby boy. And after a few minutes, she snatched angrily the necklace and the book off of our table and walked away. So I didn't necessarily love that experience, but that is what happened. So I am gonna share that story. Yeah, so lunch was really good. We got on the boat about mid-afternoon and got changed into bathing suits. We went to the pool on the 15th deck of our boat, and we did some of the water slides. I was really uncomfortable with my eye. I thought maybe if I got into the pool, I could cool myself off and my eye would feel better. It did not. So when we got back to the room, I took my contacts out, put my glasses on, and we had our first dining package meal. that evening. So we went to Le Bistro for a very fancy dinner, exceptionally fancy dinner, and it was delicious. It was wonderful. And then after Le Bistro, we went to Howl at the Moon on the boat. So we saw some dueling pianists, and it was very nice. I mean, they played some very classic Howl at the Moon songs, and I really loved that my son was there to experience that with me because I've never gone to dueling piano with him before. And then after Howl at the Moon, we went back to our stateroom and watched one of the Euros games. Because of the time change, the Euros games for us were at 10 p.m. So that was definitely put it on as we were falling asleep activity. So another very busy day on our trip, full of wonderful memories and things. And if you have not subscribed, please take a moment and do so, because I have, goodness, another week plus to go through with this series.